So listen, first of all, thank you all for making such long journeys to come down here. You know, Chris, I think, how long, 3 hours?
Just under, yeah. There's a whole
Andrew,
3 hours.
You know, so it's fantastic to see you all, and coming out on a Sunday as well. You know, taking some valuable time away from your family.
And church.
Right, like that. So I really appreciate it, is the first thing. So you'll be relieved to note I have not got 50,000 PowerPoint slides, but I thought I would just show you some little bits about how we got here today, from where I started from. And I don't know how, looking around the age of people here, you'll probably all remember the old CRT televisions that we had in the 70s. Yeah, you're only 5, you don't know. But that's where I actually started my electronics career. Believe it or not, my dad used to go ballistic at me when he realised that I'd taken another vacuum tube TV in from the neighbours to repair at the age of 8. And he obviously very, very unhappy, because we all know, you know, those kind of things have around 22 kilovolts in them. So you got to be, and as an 8-year-old, he didn't think I kind of was practicing enough safety, repairing the neighbours' TVs. But that's where I started. I started repairing TVs for neighbours, radios, the old radiogram systems, old Roberts radios, and that's how I learned to do repairs. And I had a very good teacher at the time who'd worked on a lot of radar back in the day of the war, and he took me through how these things worked and kind of gave me an interest in electronics. And it's something that's actually given me a grounding all my life. And in fact, you know, you'll see how things have developed to where we are today. But in the middle 80s, or early 80s, you probably remember, we started to get the first computers. I don't know if you remember that, you know, the old ZX Spectrums, Dragon 32s. Okay, I was fascinated. So I was really lucky that my dad, even though he was annoyed at me for repairing vacuum tube TVs, managed to get me a Dragon 32, and then eventually a BBC Micro, and that opened a world of programming to me. I was always into electronics, and I was always tinkering and, you know, repairing things. I started designing things. My first products, which I sold on any kind of large scale, were to a local retailer who used to sell to other businesses. Wow. And it was memory expansion chips for the BBC Micro. And I started writing manuals and writing a bit of software, and that's where it literally all started. And I then went into an unusual business. Scrap metal.
Related.
It's related, but I'll tell you why it's related. So, obviously, mid-80s, you know, there was a huge computer boom, lots of computers being made, lots of things were going digital at the time. And Andrew, I know you love analog, but my passion at the time was digital. And so what happened in the industry was that there was a worldwide chip shortage. So what I did was I made relationships with all the scrap merchants, because what they did is they used to take circuit boards and crush them for gold. Okay, so what I said was, well, don't crush them, give them to me first, and what I'll do is I'll take off the chips and then I'll give them back to you. So I paid them for giving me the boards, and then they got the boards back and got the same amount of gold, so a win-win. I actually earned more money then doing that than relatively than I do now. Okay, and I used to have a room like this with people in fume cabinets with basically heat guns, taking the chips off the boards, and we'd test them, clean them, and we'd sell them. And we'd sell them to big manufacturers because they couldn't get hold of the chips. Anyway, obviously things changed, and then I had all these chips that I was reclaiming, and of course the market tailed off. So what do I do with them? So I started designing circuit boards. So I then bought what's called a flow soldering machine, which is a big bath of solder the boards go through on a conveyor. And I had an assembly team, and they used to put the chips in the boards, and then we sold them as finished products for the computer market. So that was my kind of second business. Now, as it happened, that first company that I sold a lot of products to was looking for somebody to come and help them, and I was finding running a business on my own at the age of, would have been 16 at that time, quite taxing, you know, because I was doing all the accounting, all the sales, all the design. One man business, I was literally running 24 hours a day. So we merged, and that started my life in the computer industry, which is where I still am today. Valhalla Electronics is not my main job, it's my hobby, but I've got a passion for it. So what I now do is I work for a large American IT company, and I run all of their services for Europe. So I have a couple of hundred people in my day job, and my day job consists of managing people. And the reason I love Valhalla Electronics is because it gets me away from that. Actually something to concentrate on that's in my control.
Chips don't answer back.
Yeah, chips don't answer back, or boys don't answer back.
No, chips do what they're told when you tell them. Which is
Not
the same with
always.
people.
Not always. So that's kind of my background. I'm a chartered electrical and electronic engineer by training. I did go to university in between all of running those businesses, and I managed to get my Royal Charter. And that's, I don't know if any of you are chartered or anything, but basically your peers review you and you're going through a panel after you've served several years. And I've always been designing and manufacturing in my early days. And so I was quite lucky that they all thought I was doing okay, and said, yeah, you're the right stuff. And so I got my Royal Charter, kind of early 90s. So that's where it all started. Colin did mention to me about listening to a couple of things, but I just thought I'd tell you what I actually listened to. Now this looks a bit Heath Robinson, I know, okay? But
Electric fire.
it's electric fire, keeps me warm at night. That thing consumes a lot of electricity. I'm a smart meter actually.
Resting on top.
So you can see, yes, you can see everything's designed and built by me apart from the LP12. So that's my own design of 845 base tube amp. So that does consume a hell of a lot of power, but it sounds terrific. 30 watts of pure Class A loveliness. They're the power supplies. They're actually bigger than the amplifier. Okay. Subwoofer and active preamplification, tube-based phono. That is a CD player which I designed and built based on a Philips CD12. You know, the aluminium.
Yeah.
No, CD Pro. Sorry, CD Pro.
That's the same as the CD12 that Lynn used.
Yes.
In transport.
Same. And then that is a passive pre with relay step attenuator, and just peeking in there somewhere, of course, is the Zeus products. So we won't show those. That's my hi-fi. This is, again, I love building everything. These are my speakers. So if you recognise those, they are louder drivers. And that is a folded horn. Okay, so back inside the cabinet. Okay, so if you look on the internet for the medallion plans, you'll actually find my plans there. And these speakers were designed by a world-renowned audio designer called Jennifer Crock, but I drew the drawings for them. So you can go on the internet, you can download those, and you can have a go at making them. There's absolutely no screws in them at all. It's all lock-mounted joints. It's, you know, routed side to hold the sides, the baffles in, and I had great fun making those.
I bet you did. You said my work skills are nowhere near as good as that. I'll sort that one out.
They're about this high, right? You can't see the scale, they're about that high. So that's what I listen. I love hi-fi, probably like you all do. You know, it's something I go and do when I relax. So how, just you might be interested how the Zeus actually started. Okay, and it was a bit of ignorance actually, because you know, I sold my record collection in the early 80s when I got one of the very early CD players. I thought, oh, this is brilliant. Okay, and then little did I realised through the years, of course, and now I actually like the old analog. So I built up my vinyl collection again, and I had an LP12, and I started getting all these half-speed masters in, you know, so playing my 45, as you know. I was fed up changing the bloody belt on the thing, and I had a Valhalla board in. I thought, there's got to be a better way of doing this, rather than having to, you know, move the belt over. So I didn't bother doing any research, I just doodled a circuit. And I thought, okay, I'll build that. And that's how it started. I didn't know at the time there was a thing called a Hercules, or anything else of similar nature. And that is board, oh, no, it's not. That is board number 2. I don't know if you've seen any of these. There are a couple of them knocking around still. And that was what my doodle resulted in. Okay, so it's all traditional plastic components. And you can even see the crystal trim values on the 50, 60, 10. Well, it's all hand built. PCBs are cheap enough to get made, so I used to etch my own PCBs, but no one does that anymore. But you get them made, stuff them, and that was actually my friend's. I've got a couple of friends who are into hi-fi, mentioned it, I think before, and he just gave me that back the other day, just in time for this, and he's still using it, and I've just given him a new one, but that is still running from back just before COVID, was when they were produced. All right. So where do we go to from that? Well, after that trial seemed to work out, I thought, I could put these into production. And so that was kind of the intermediate board, back from just 2021, thereabouts. Okay, so you can see it's kind of a generation on, okay, but still, you know, all of these kind of heat sinks and then obviously as the design progressed, we get to those, and that's the current production board, and it's now obviously designed for being automatically made. So I no longer sit there and solder all the components on. Believe it or not, I actually did in the very first surface mount versions, and it literally, you wear a pair of magnifying glasses, and
That's why I stopped soldering.
What you can't see on the underside, that's how many, you've all probably got them, there's loads of components, but literally tweezers, or it's not tweezers, it's a vacuum pump tweezer. You put them on and then you put them into an infrared oven and it solders them all for you. Okay, but it used to take an hour to an hour and a half to put all of the components on, and when you're talking about 0.5 millimeter pitch leads, you know, it's difficult to keep the reliability up when you do these things by hand. So now they are all made by an automated machine, okay? Which is why it's now almost exclusively surface mount technology, and if you flip the boards over, you'll find, you know, all of those small components underneath, okay? Apart from people connecting them in the wrong way and blowing them up, okay? We've never actually had any from the automated boards back fail, ever. Okay, and we've shipped, well, just less than 1,000 of them now. So, you know, pretty good reliability rate on them. Okay. Any questions? No, you're perfect audience, you know.
I'm thinking that.
All right. You're thinking one up. Okay. If you want to know how it works, that's how the board works.
Perfectly straightforward.
There you go.
Yeah.
That is the board. Okay. All right. Just I won't dwell on it, but essentially.
Oh please, go on.
Essentially, it's basically all microprocessor driven. So we actually generate all of the signals in a microprocessor. Okay. They obviously get amplified through various levels. And then it goes up to a high voltage circuit to drive the motor, and then obviously the tachometer reads the platter rotation, feeds back to the microprocessor, and that then adjusts the various frequencies and voltages real time to obviously make sure it achieves the speed. Okay, it's as simple as that. It's just a feedback loop. Yeah. Okay, and that's what you find. Okay, if you put a, you've all done this, right? I'm sure when you might know, when you first put your board in, and you probably noticed the motor didn't run at 33.33. It usually runs off speed, usually, and it gets worse obviously as the bearings are older, the belts get worn. The motors themselves are not made with any particular precision. They're just mass-produced, stamped. We were talking about it before, stamped plate metal, which is then folded. And there's a, you know, if you just put a resistor and capacitor dropper circuit in and let it go, it's an open loop thing. You've got no control over the speed. You've actually got to read it and then vary the frequency to the motor to, you know, be able to control it. Make sense? All right. So that's basically how a Zeus board works. All this had to be documented because when you go for what's called a nice little regulation called CE approval, or UKCA as it now is, you have to have a big technical file, and then someone goes and reads through your technical file and then tests your boards to destruction to see if it will be fail safe or at least fail without burning your house down. And then they have to go in a big metal chamber and they get tested to see what radiation they produce, so your EMC tests. The boards fail first time. Usually most electronic does. So we had to go through a redesign to get them to the right standard where it would pass the regulations. So
would a Valhalla pass now?
No. No. First of all, Valhalla is the circuitry in that. I mean, it, as you know, it gets very hot. Okay, the board is live. There's very few safety features on it. I mean, it has a fuse, which is something called it actually has an inrush, you know, those resistors. So it does have some protection, but no, it probably wouldn't. To get for boards to pass the regulations that we have these days, they need internal ground planes. So it probably wouldn't. I've never tried it, but I'm not about to pay a couple of £1,000 to get all Valhalla tested on these things. But that's essentially how these things work. Yeah. All right. So I was going to do a little thing here, but I'll just ask you whether you want me to do it. I was going to take, if we had a larger audience, say this is how you tune your boards. Now I don't know if anyone's interested or not.
I've already done it.
If you're not
interested, so I've already done it.
Of course I'm interested. All right. Or I'll take you through separately.
I'll go with what the room says.
I'll probably skip it because there's probably not enough people here to do a live demonstration of that, I think.
Why don't you just say what you can do? You don't necessarily have to describe it or...
Yeah, I mean, okay. So
halfway.
let's just do it really quickly, right? It'll take literally 2 minutes. Okay. Because it might be useful because I would suspect, well, let me ask you, after the initial setup, okay, when the board was in and things, did you ever do any adjustments or usually?
Yeah. I probably only LP12 with the USBs hanging out the back.
Hanging out the back, okay.
Because I like the fiddle, really. Oh yeah, that's not quite right. Let's do that again.
Okay.
Now it's so stable.
I think it's PC only, isn't it? You don't do a Mac.
Yeah, you can run it on a Mac. You can't run this software on the Mac, but you can. Let's just see if we can get that up there.
That's why I left it alone.
Okay.
We only have a Mac laptop in the house, and it's my wife's.
Right. So you can run it on a Mac. Okay. You just this piece of software is Windows only, but there's a thing called Terminal on the Mac, and you can just run Terminal. It's inbuilt and connect to the board, and then you can just run it. Okay. It is all command line. You know, there's this window, and I just realised here this is going to be really tricky for me because I can't see that screen and this one. So
I'll tell you. Right, what do you need to know?
So in here, okay, you've got basically 8 numbers. Okay, you would go into serial command, and the things there's 2 parameters really which you should go in and change. Okay, in number 1, system parameters, very important parameters about halfway down the screen, and it says, at full speed, reduce the motor drive voltage by this percentage. Okay, so what that does, once the sensor has read that it's up to 33, 33 or 45, it can back off the drive voltage of the motor. Now, you need a larger drive voltage to get your platter up to speed. It needs more torque at the beginning, but once it's running, you can typically drop the voltage by up to 50%. It's the most common thing I would advise people to turn on, because it makes a huge difference to the noise and vibration that the motor makes. Okay, so I won't go through it, but just go in and set that, and set it to 50%, and then see if it still works, because you've got to do it in place on your system. Okay, if it doesn't work at 50%, increase it to 60, and if it doesn't work, 70. Okay, just a question of trying it. All right. The other one to look at is if you go into set motor parameters. In there, we were having a discussion about motors before. They're not very sophisticated. They expect the currents and voltages between the coils to be at a thing called 90 degrees. The way the motors are made, if you put 90 in, you'll never achieve a quiet motor, or a quieter motor. You could by tuning it manually. Okay, so you go in a thing called a phase angle, and then you should play with that. You only need a couple of degrees either way from 90, but you've got to either hold the motor and keep trying it and feel the vibration, or you can use a stethoscope if you want. Or some people have got sensitive enough hearing that they can actually hear. And just change the values around until you hear it as quiet as possible, save the settings, and then job done. Okay? I won't without duplicating the screen, I won't actually go into it, but it's really quite straightforward. I'll show anybody who's interested later on. Now, Colin and I were chatting beforehand, and he said, you know what, he said, I love the board, he said, but I hate the fact that you have to use the software to do all of this stuff. All right. Have you ever used the software, or you've got similar?
I've used it.
You've used it. Is it difficult?
I thought the menu system was a bit clunky.
Yeah.
But you have to go into the setting, set it to do something, and then figure out whether you've actually done that. So I have to back out again and think, no, I didn't do that properly, and go in and change it back. That's the only thing I'd say about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Once I got the hang of it, it was all right, but it took a couple of goes to work out what the settings actually, to make them, what's the word, confirm them in some respects. Yeah. That's the only thing. It's a bit clunky from that respect.
Yeah.
That's how
I'd agree, and also in the version of firmware that was in the controllers before the June release, you had to go and you changed the motor parameters. You had to go all the way out, stop it, and press the power button, and then restart it to read the parameters. Now it's kind of dynamic, so you can make changes in the motor menu live, and it will pick up the changes. So it's a bit easier to do that initial motor setting. Okay. However, Craig and I have been chatting for a while, and we were saying, wouldn't it be nice if you could get rid of the software menu system? Okay. And the fact that you don't need to connect it to a PC. It would be much more useful, or a Mac, to make these changes. So that's what we've done. Okay, so you guys are the first to see this, but here is the brand new unit.
That's not fair.
Okay.
That's not fair. I want it now.
So, all right, you probably gathered that's obviously the brand new external unit. Okay, and I put that up because you might not be able to see, but that's actually a capacitive touchscreen.
Switch.
Okay.
That's a show.
Okay. So I'll do it here so everybody can see, and you can have a play with this later if you like. So it's a touchscreen. Now this is a prototype, okay? So it's not ready to go, and the reason why it's a prototype.
You think it might not make production?
Oh, it will make production. Okay. It will make production. Just the only thing I would say that I need to kind of fix is we need to make the aperture just slightly bigger, because to get to the corner of the touchscreen with your finger, it's a little bit tricky. So I have to give you a little pen to kind of touch it at the moment. But that's why we have prototype, right? So yeah, we'll make the aperture a little bit bigger so you can get in the corners with your finger. But that's pretty much how the unit will be. Some little minor tweaks to do, but it's almost ready to go. I've been obviously trialing it on my LP12 to make sure it plays without any issues. I'm delighted to tell you I've been listening to my records this week on it and no problems.
But is the entire board in there?
The entire board's in there.
Right.
Okay. So with the way you connect that obviously to your
It can't be the same board though, it's a slightly different board.
It's a different board,
That's what I thought,
Okay.
because it looks slimmer.
Yeah.
A lot slimmer.
And
Daughter board the same.
yeah, it's pretty much the same daughter board, okay. So obviously that fits on your cross brace, cable connects in, and then obviously the peripherals are standard. And a nice big metal aluminium connector.
Well, we're going to talk about that later, I
Alright.
can assure you.
Very craft work.
But you have fully touch screen, so you can either start the device just by literally touching that button, okay, or you can use the normal controls on the LP12 itself. And the best thing is, of course, now if we go into the setup menu, there we go, you can see all of the menu, okay, and then you can obviously go into the thing and you can just scroll down and you can make the changes. So it's entirely self-contained.
And you can do that live, which
You
is
can do it
great.
live.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay,
Really clever.
so no
Well
need
done.
for PC or Mac anymore. Okay. You like it? Alright. So you can have a little play with that later on and see what you think. And hoping that obviously that's going to be a bit of a game changer.
Oh, no, hang on, before price. Is black the only colour you do?
Well, you've seen on the website currently that there's a choice of silver and black.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That's everything out of silver. It's
Yeah.
all silver.
Okay.
Can't think why, but it is.
My intention was to do black only.
You see
However,
how anal I am about silver.
I
You've
know.
seen your
However, when I actually checked the statistics of how many of these things we've sold and the proportion, I actually didn't realise the silver was quite as popular as it actually is. We actually sell 50-50, so it will probably be better than silver.
Good to know, isn't it, Mario?
Oh,
Just for you,
Mario.
Mario. Just for you.
You better buy one now.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But it's
I'll end up-
set the thing up and leave it out of sight anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really what you do.
No, but
I mean,
I'll
it's like-
know. But I'll know it's a different colour than I want. I'll know it.
It's the whole
Yeah.
Lingo 4 thing. You're not supposed to have that silly looking box on display. You know, it's
True.
to be behind you.
True.
Yeah.
That's really annoying with the wire coming out the other end, doesn't it? That's the part so
So that's essentially it. Obviously, all the same kind of things. If you don't like to have the moving display, some people prefer not to get distracted. It'll obviously back blank and go to a blank screen whilst you're playing, if you want. And there's two themes. There's a dark background theme and a white background
Oh,
theme.
nice.
Okay, like your phone, you know. If you're in night mode, you know, although it doesn't detect if it's dark or not. But you know, that's
That's the next job.
That's the next job. Put a sensor in. No, we'll forget that. So yeah, well, that should be available January. Let's say just going through prototypes, and some lucky customer will get one to try over the remaining 2 months, because I'd like it to be really substantially tested.
Drop
Out in the
test,
field.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, please don't.
It does look like it'll handle it, if I'm absolutely honest.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I haven't actually tried a drop test on one. I don't intend to. So yeah, you're the first people to see this. So I hope you like it.
It is really impressive looking.
And
Well, have a nice connector on it. Have
just
that on
one-
display.
Just one thing I may have a word with about that, but I don't think I should do it in public.
okay, all right then.
Right, let's go for
Go
it.
for it.
That big connector, it's the bane of my life. Hate it.
Hate
right,
it.
I don't hate it, not really. It's not as if we go out drinking or anything. I hate it that much. But the solid downs wall shelf is a lovely piece of engineering because I've got mine mounted on the wall. But whenever I want to get that connector and thread it down through the back, I can't get it through that hole. And I've had a chat with Paul about saying, can you make that hole bigger? And he says, no, how would we believe this is? So I always have to lift out the woodwork
Yes.
to actually put the connector down and then lift the woodwork back in.
Can I make a
in the
suggestion?
shelf. Go on then.
Feed it through that end.
Yeah, but when that's connected to your open 12 inside,
Okay.
because I've got an external box,
Yeah.
and that's my problem. So that's because that's always clamped, you know, as
Yeah.
you would do, and that's the only bugbear I've had. Apart from that, genius machine, love it.
Good.
Yeah.
The only issue we have is the reason
It's
why
how many connections,
it's
holes.
and also there's 110 volts on it. You know, because
right.
the motor
Yes, of course.
is 110.
Yeah,
Right.
of course.
So you have to have a connector that's rated for
Yeah.
safety reasons. You know, to carry the.
I love that.
Does it actually start up at 110?
Depends what you set it for in the software, but
Yeah.
typically they start at about 85, 90 volts.
And drops to 50,
Or
45.
whatever you would choose, yeah, on your back off. Okay. But yeah, they have to be rated to drive.
No, I love that connector. It's really good.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Alright.
I've changed my mind. I know what bolts are going down.
Alright.
Backtrack quite quickly.
So I mean, I know we've had one question. You didn't like the connector, but please do ask other questions.
Is it just UK market? So I've got a Canadian wife, and the plan is one day to go back to Canada,
No, it'll work.
find one of the Canadian.
Yeah. So this is a big thing actually. So on this particular model, you can obviously see there's a red. And you can see the voltage change switch at the back.
Yeah.
So you can click it over to 110. But we actually sell quite a lot of these boards to the US at the moment because I don't know if you know the Lin history. You know, they went through many phases of variations of shipping, either because obviously 60 hertz, okay, different supply frequency, so the motors you can't change because they're fixed. So they went through a variety of things. First of all, they shipped 60 hertz motors for a while. Then they said, oh no, that's too much trouble. So they shipped a 50 hertz motor, but then they machined the pulley down so it's smaller, so you get small pulleys. And then they said, oh, actually, let's just supply Valhalla boards. So again, they had to do two things. So if you ever look at the Valhalla circuit diagrams on the internet, you'll see two different ratings for the crystal. One is for the 60 hertz market, one's for the 50 hertz market, again to cater for the different motors.
Until they put the magic out.
Well, now they literally just ship 50 hertz motors, but with, you know, electronic speed. Okay, so fortunately, obviously these, one of the reasons we designed the Minos and the Zeus, they'll accept any supply frequency, and because we generate the sine waves in the microprocessor, we have to because we need to vary them, we can choose to put any frequency out regardless of the supply frequency, so our board caters regardless. So of course people are finding they can use these anywhere.
Now, if you buy a brand new Magic in the States, it still has the small pulley.
Does it have the small?
Yeah, because it's all it is a
oh yeah, because it's the
dropper.
voltage dropper circuit rather than the Valhalla type.
Yeah,
brain
so
sort of
there's still those awful
Yeah.
60 hertz motors going about. Well, 50 hertz with smaller pulleys.
Yeah.
I bought one by mistake on eBay. Oh, I thought it was cheap.
Yeah, well, there, Andrew, you know how to fix it now.
Yeah.
Right? So when you run through the setup on here, one of the very first questions is, do you have a 60 hertz motor or a small pulley? And you can say yes or no, and then it will set itself accordingly.
I've got a small pulley.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute.
This has been recorded.
Let's
This will be consumption everywhere.
not
so-
start a holy war.
Right, so yes is the answer.
Cool.
You can use this
What's the
board
life?
anywhere.
Stay here. Just.
I don't know, Vancouver Island. Southampton, Vancouver Island?
Isn't there a prison on
There's not.
Vancouver Island?
I can imagine you would live to a high-fi on Vancouver Island. It's quite remote, isn't it?
Yeah, there's places in Victoria, isn't
Yeah.
there? But yeah, it's a bit limited.
Right, next question.
Very nice.
What's next, Steve? Where do you go from here?
Where do you go from here? That's a really good question.
Done this before.
We will turn the recording off when I actually say where we go from here in a moment. So there are a couple of things. First of all, there is some enhancements planned. In fact, Colin raised it before and I said, hold that thought for later. To make things a bit easier to set up in future, even if you haven't got the external unit. Okay, but again, it's prototype, so I'm not gonna, I'll tell you about it, but I'll probably edit it out the recording. There may well be, can I mention that other product we were talking about?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, there may well be another motor controller to be paired specifically with a turntable. Okay, the performance of which will be somewhere radical type level. Okay, so that's a future though. Still playing around with that right now. The other thing that I may release is using this same casework is a relay stepped attenuator and impulse selector. Again, all run from the colour touchscreen. I mentioned what I use earlier, and I mentioned as a passive preamp with a relay stepped attenuator. That's being trialled now to go into one of these. So just basically input selection, passive preamp perhaps. I mean, you've seen from my things, I do design, I build lots of tube amplifiers. I'm going to give away to friends actually for the cost
Can I
of
be your
bits.
friend?
Right?
You've already insulted him.
Yeah, that's right.
Go round.
You don't like the style of my
Yeah,
connectors.
but we're friends, so that's all I've got away with.
And admitting you drunk things.
But
Thanks for your
I
support,
honestly, I don't have the time to make amplifiers anymore.
Right.
This is very, there's a lot to do. Keeping
Quite a developed product.
these and develop products as well at the same time, as well as the other work I also do. So
Any option for pitch control,
pitch.
as in speed control? Speaking as also as a Technics owner.
Okay, you can do that now.
Any
Okay.
on the touchscreen?
I've actually just taken that facility out on the touchscreen, but why would you want the pitch control if it's speed sensing?
Because
Match speeds.
sometimes you want to, no, not with match speeds, but yeah, I mean sometimes records aren't actually pressed at exactly the right pitch, so you need to adjust the speed down.
So a manual.
Yeah, it's very rare.
Yeah.
It's more applicable to 78 RPM
Yes. Yeah.
users, which you're not going to get on that.
No.
But there are a lot of pop records which aren't tuned to A440.
Yeah.
Which, if you're playing other instruments with them or something, if you want to if you've got a band and you want to practice with them, you don't want to sort of tune to the record. You want the record to tune to you.
Yeah.
It's very niche, but it's something that.
So on your Zeus boards, if you have them, if you go into set system parameters, scroll down halfway, you'll find a setting that says allow manual adjustment to the frequency. Okay, so as long as you have some other switch, I'll send you the wiring diagram for this, but you can connect it to your Zeus and it will do it.
Okay.
It'll do it. We've never produced a finished version of that because you need to have a good appearance. You need somewhere to put that control.
There's only ever
Or
been
have a
three
roll
ones.
call.
And then you have to finish for it once. Yeah.
I got round it by having the Long Dog audio
Yeah.
supply, which was designed for old Ida drive decks.
Yeah.
And you can adjust the motor frequency
Yeah.
on that, so it's easy.
Yeah.
So
yes, you can do it, and you just need a momentary action switch, one for up, one for down.
Right.
But we could actually put it as a extra button on the
Yeah,
absolutely
on the touch.
absolutely
or
no
the power
problem
supply
to do that.
setup, you can have choose your frequencies, and the next question will be, are you Colin?
Yeah,
that's right.
It provides you the extra.
It provides you with the
features
extra.
which
Yeah.
is what you want.
Perfect.
I know the silly people.
Do you know the simplest solutions are the best?
Maybe.
In fact,
I'll shut up now.
or you can't, don't even supply Cobham with the power supply, but, you know.
I mean, I must say that's a very impressive looking supply. And I've had my Zeus for a long while now, but I recently built a deck for my daughter, and she's only got a Minos. And I didn't really want to give her a Zeus, one because I'm a dad and I'm cheap, and second,
They're very affordable.
I know they are, but I think the little LED in place LED OLED display will not be confusing for her, but a bit of a chore to pick speeds, whereas the push button's nice and easy. Two colours and that's it. So everything you've got is geared up towards the Zeus, but does that mean the Minos might die?
No.
Oh right, okay, it's going to stay around for a while.
Yeah, it definitely will. So let me just. Have you all seen the new switches for the? I know some of you probably had them. Well, this was a bugbear we had, and people didn't like the adhesive. You know, the old aluminium. We used to have bezels with aluminium, and of course you can't make them clip in, being aluminium. So we had to either put a clip on the back or adhesive, a small adhesive tab. And if any of you watched it, I know it wasn't this column, but there was an interesting experience we had on the forum there that said you're using sellotape to stick the switch in. No, it's actually adhesive that's made used on iPhones, you know. So he said, well, isn't that sellotape? No. But anyway, I'm delighted that we now have this new clip in. I think did I send you this one?
You did, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, you got the prototype.
I might modify this slightly.
Yeah. So we now have these, and obviously the kind of barb arrangement. So
That's when I fitted. I can't remember who it was for because they bought it and sent it to me. It had a sort of bezel that fitted underneath.
that's right, the plastic.
Yeah, you drop that.
Yeah. Don't need it anymore.
You couldn't, it was almost impossible. You couldn't really do it with the top
It
layer.
wi-
Yes, you could.
And the almost impossible, you say, with the corner braces.
Yeah.
The one's about that there's no
Yeah,
corner
no,
brace.
that's right.
But yeah, that's the new minor switch. So you've seen it. You okay? You know.
It's a nice little arrangement.
It is.
Easy to fit. Very good.
And now I've made the investment in getting these made, I'm not going to drop the minus.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, and that's the thing, you know, now you know where the product started from, it's very difficult, you know, unless you are a huge manufacturer, to invest in tooling often to get to these kind of really ideal situations. So it takes time to work out, is the product going to sell, is it going to be successful, does a market like it, and then you prefer to invest, you know, in getting the more machined and the more, you know, injection molded type things. And you know, Andrew, as we know, has made a big investment in obviously the sub chassis and the top plates, you know, and that just shows commitment, you know, because there's actually a special hole for the Zeus now to be installed, you know. But Andrew's got confidence, obviously, and it's, I don't know, you've got loads made, haven't you? 70 odd of those sub chassis, you know. Takes some commitment to get all the stock and, you know, invest, you know, in those kind of things. So anyway, to answer your question, no, the Minos is staying around. The Minos is actually the same board as the Zeus. Exactly the same board. There's one. Okay. What we do is we severely limit the software inside, and of course we don't supply the sensor and the OLED display. When you get the upgrade, all you do is you have to use the software for this. Is you go and you give you a software license key that is keyed to the serial number of the mic. It unlocks the software. Okay.
Can you turn all of these off worldwide remotely as well? Just say you now will pay a subscription.
That's a good idea.
Oh, no.
No. And you know, you can then fit the sensor, you can fit the display, and then it turns it into the Zeus. Okay. The actual intellectual properties in the software. Okay, it's not necessarily in the boards. In fact, the boards are probably very easily copied if someone gets hold of them. You know, but it's taken years of development for the software.
Is it possible to match the motor characteristics on the Miles board?
Yes,
So if you,
within limits. So you do have voltage adjustment,
yeah.
and you have phase adjustment.
And how's that done?
Software.
Software.
That's how I did my daughter's one. It was slightly off 33, and I just put an app on my phone, put a bit of sellotape on the top of the platter, and then start tuning it that way.
Yeah.
And then it just, as soon as it got the 33 right, unplug it, don't need it anymore. Marvellous.
Yeah. So you can trim the
Can
values.
trim it, yeah.
All right.
It's a good precaution, like I was saying earlier, to actually plug the USB in, isn't it, and lead it out the back, just because otherwise
Yeah.
it's
I you know, some people don't like to do that. Some people don't like to have, but it doesn't cause any problem. It doesn't cause any issue with the C approval, and I prefer that because sometimes I get customers call up and say, I'm true at 45, for example. It just doesn't get there. You know, all it needs is a bit of a tweak on the voltage at 45 to make it go. But if they don't have that cable, then I can't help them. Right? They've got to take the deck to a dealer. You've obviously got a jig. You've got to flip it, put it all in. You know. So yeah, if you can leave the USBs in, it is better. Yeah. I've got one customer right now who's having to make a 200-mile trip to the dealer for that very reason. So it is better to leave them in if you can. All right. Any more questions?
There was one from the floor previously, although I think you've sort of semi-answered it now, but obviously you do use an LP12 personally, so that's good. How did you sort of actually get into using one, and was that really sort of the main driver to doing this business?
Okay. That's a good question. Where did I actually had Mantra prior to my LP12. I still have it, along with now my growing collections of turntables like Linaxis as well, and also Riga. So I do have a range of turntables. Okay, I did answer the question a bit earlier, but I'll recap it. Yes, I didn't do my research to see if there's any way of changing to 45, and decided to design a circuit to do it, and that's how we got the boards we know today. You'll also notice, if you've been on the website, I actually repair a lot of Lin equipment. So I'm a big fan.
Are you busy enough?
Yeah, all right. You want to know how many repairs I get? I get about 10 a week.
Jesus.
Yeah. And that's a combination of Andrew plus some other customers. But I do a lot of Linaxis work. Okay, those are great power supplies. You know, and horror stories of ones I've received. You know, literally being struck by lightning. Almost every component fried in cases. Usually, the ones I've grown at are when people have tried to do it themselves.
That was a great one I sent you the other week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We just say thanks for that. I could just see that, like that look, just like thanks for that.
I've done that many of them. I've got for a fixed price on them, and same with the Lingos as well. I do the Lingo repairs because they are great turntables. I want to keep them going, you know, and I know as dealers we need to make new sales. But it really annoys me when I hear, oh, you can't get the parts anymore, or you know, and what they mean is they either can't do it or won't do it, okay, because you can get the parts.
Can't monetize it, can they, sufficiently? If you can't monetize it sufficiently,
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem, okay. So, yes, you know, I want to keep this older equipment in service. You know now my background. That's where I started repairing things, okay? I like the mental challenge of having a problem to solve. My job actually is all about problem solving. That's my main job, okay? Any more questions? Okay, just want to say thank you, and we'll stop the recording, and then I will just tell you one final thing. And I'm afraid the people who are remote don't get to hear this, but next time they are here, they will obviously get to hear some news that we can't make public. All right, thanks so much.
Cheers, Steve.